After that, you know,
my name is Afzal Taher. I'm from London. I represent a little small organization called Kashmir International Fund. My observation and question. I start with the UNPO president. You highlighted the links between Tibet, Ladakh, but you did not identify the difficulties. If there is the links, there should be, people should have open access to explore those links. So do you feel that this is the one of the difficulty artificially created by? This is the one question. My next question to Michael, you have said the rules would be nothing until and unless sight. As per the UN resolution, this is the basic law providing, whether it is called Gilgit Baltistan, Northern areas, Azad Kashmir, Pakistani occupied Kashmir, Indian occupied Kashmir, Indian Kashmir, whatever it is. So that provides the basic law, de facto and de jure. Based on that, regardless of the history, we had the situation in Kuwait, we have many other situations. So based on that law, that what was the previous history in our mind? Today's history, that Kuwait was the member of the United Nations, fully right to exist. So how do you see that we can enforce the international law to empower the indigenous people, like whatever the grievances arises from Hamid Khan, that indigenous people are not in power to protect their rights, regardless of development going on. Derek, maybe I'm correct to pronunciate your name, Derek? You highlighted very important point, that what is there and people would ultimately migrate. Don't you see that this whole situation go down to the basic, when this land has been divided forcibly and force people not to interact? As you said that we discuss here, it will not affect. But the original people of Baltistan, people of Gilgit, and people of Hunza and Ladakh are not allowed to have a free interaction. People of Pakistani occupied where I am from originally, and people of Indian occupied Kashmir, we are not allowed to interact independently. So how we can resolve our problems? This is one. And if we will not able this basic, how we will improve our basic condition of economics? Do you see there is a basic question to address first to move the secondary question? Is my question. You have made very good. I have Gary's point that the narratives, different narratives of a society, is everywhere. In Germany, there is a narratives. In United Kingdom, we have different narratives. So how to resolve the different narratives? We do have different narratives of Hunza, we do have different narratives of Baltistan. In religious terms, in cultural terms, in so many other terms, in political terms, we have different narratives in Ladakh, in Kargil, in Kashmir, Srinagar, in Jammu, in Punch. But to address those narratives are the direct answer to the people from bottom up. Not administratively, that was the empire rule from top trickle down. So when we recognize people freedom, that is from bottom up. Am I correct? So how to deal with the taking into consideration the rule of law? Let the people to elect the entire territory which has been recognized by the parties in conflict. Let's say the people of that land, entire land, the Indians and Pakistani and Chinese. to elect their representative. And these representatives, whether they are from Hunza, whether they are from Jammu, whether they are from Ladakh, whether they are from Punch, to sit down and come to the terms of their own diverse narratives. That is how we can address the question, isn't it? Or other one is the gun. So how do you see this one? This is my question.
I think the professor, I would defer to the professor first.
Okay, you're completely right about what you're saying. And it is very important to base any solution on the people who are concerned with this, on the people who are suffering from all these things. And the narratives of all people are obvious and present in many day-to-day practices that are taking place in northern Pakistan. That the term Gilgit Baltistan was identified is such a compromise, because this was a commission of people who were the representatives of the different valleys and came to the idea to have not Arzi Gulistan, as some other people suggested. They came to the term and say Gilgit and Baltistan is the common denominator for us, where everybody can find him and herself being represented in this. This is taking place, and I think the culture of debate is highly sophisticated all over Pakistan anyhow, but in Gilgit Baltistan as well. And that is one reason why it is sometimes so complicated to come to terms, to find a compromise, or it takes so long, let's put it this way, it takes quite long to find a compromise in these ways. And I think in an area like we have seen the disasters of Atawat and so on, where there are major disasters in Hunza and Naga, there are more important issues than debating about a name of an area and debating about the seat of something. But the seat is important because jobs are connected with this, government service jobs are connected with this. So this kind of narrative is always linked to some economic and political interests, of course. And in these kind of narratives, and in the reconciliation of the narratives, you find who is influential and who is not influential in this. And so they reflect very much about the current situation of power and dominance in an area as well.
Yes, Michael. Well, thank you for those excellent questions. International law generally is considered weak or soft. It's a term we use. And among the international law, UN resolutions may be considered particularly soft. In fact, there's many UN resolutions that are honored mostly in the breach, if that expression translates. And so I think what I was recommending is there's a number of areas of international and national law which may be cited, perhaps to craft a new resolution that can be supported around the concept of indigenous people having a seat at the table in considering the development of natural resources that can be broadly supported and in fact is embraced in policy in many of the nations that are implicated here. So they'd have a hard time, not supporting it. Not to say they won't do it, but they would have a difficult time. And in fact, for example, particularly like the highway here, to cite when you're building an infrastructure that extends to national borders, that there must be a process that where the indigenous people have a right to have their voices heard on how you manage the natural resources, develop them, and allow for a construction of a highway that goes through disputed territories. I think there may be a number of new resolutions and other instruments of international national law which may be packaged to consider the rights of indigenous people at this time, particularly if they're framed around the concepts of sustainable and secure development.
Okay, I tried to give a brief answer in a world where climate change is evident, because this is also what we're talking about. I noticed that the answer of me is not sufficient and is quite general. But if we are able to improve agricultural practices in combination with innovative, I would say, irrigation techniques in the area, that's at least a small step in combination as well with, personally, but this is very my point of view, maybe some programs that are looking into how to control family size. Bring the proper words, huh? I know that I'm touching here a cultural sensitive issue. So we are talking about programs and ideas that you could say should something be enforced. I don't know. I don't know whether it's a good direction. And should something like agricultural programs be subsidized? Yes, because what I've seen, for example, in Afghanistan, there's a small poultry program. A frozen chicken from Brazil and USA is being sold at the market in Herat for 14 euro cents. 14 euro cents. DDP, duty delivery paid. No Afghan farmer, anybody, can ever raise a bird, small chicken, for 14 euro cents. In other words, world trade is killing these areas completely. Killing, just finishing. So, how, this is just a small example, how can we, up to a certain extent, give people there an option? And I would personally say something should be, there should be a lockdown from goods and poultry from Pakistan for a certain time to give locals the opportunity to create something. But that's a difficult one. Because that's, of course, the Islamabad government is seeing this also as a way of, hey, exploration, and that's a great way of purchasing power and all these beautiful words. But if there's no source of income for locals, they just move out. And in the end, that's maybe in 20, 30 years, where are we fighting for? A region with some people that are living under the age of 20 and some people 50 plus, and the rest of the people that are standing up are living abroad? Is that it? Difficult. I don't have an answer. That's just a small one. Yeah.
But don't you see, as he pointed out, KK, Karakoram Highway as an opportunity rather than the problems?
I'm sorry, which one?
Professor highlighted Karakoram Highway as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Is it possible in the mountain territories, because these are difficulties, as the Indians, after maybe 50 years, they managed to take the train to Srinagar?
Yeah.
Is there any way to develop from south-north? I'm not talking about just the small United States of Kashmir or Gilgit Baltistan.
I can imagine that it's interesting from an economical point of view even.
The Western China would be benefited if the trains from Pakistan all the way to Jammu with Indians in the cooperation.
That's
If the Pakistanis and Indians and others are cooperating with the Chinese together.
I can imagine export processing zones in Pakistan that are benefiting Chinese and Pakistani companies, for example, in Gilgit in a small way. Yes. If you look at the Karakoram Highway, going now sort of south to north, and the size of the region we're talking here about, then people living in Hunza Valley, 200 kilometers that way, probably still not a strong incentive to stay, because then the work is still Gilgit. It's such a big area that yes, around the Karakoram Highway there are opportunities, but if we want to avoid migration to the Karakoram Highway, difficult.
Okay, before giving anyone an opportunity, let me give Mr. Abdullah sorry.
Of course, when you are in different political situations or systems, like the Tibetans, the Ladakh people, and the Balti people, that creates a big obstacle for connection. I myself heard for the first time about Balti people maybe 15 years ago, when we also heard that there were some people there trying to revive Tibetan language by urging everybody to put the signs of the shops in Tibetan language. But I was really surprised that they really have such people there. Then our friend here, Singit Sering. Singi in Tibetan means lion, Sering means long life. It's a pure Tibetan name. It's not created. So now, of course, when gradually news came, I think today many Tibetans know about the Balti people and the disappearance of Tibetan language there through one article called Little Tibet, I think, Little Tibet.
Tariq Ali Khan.
Which did an extensive coverage. I think that was the first time, at least Tibet. I'm sure, people in Ladakh, they know, definitely. So I think this kind of situation, then, of course, we are refugees. But to preserve this language, which is we can say, the only language in the world which has been able to translate the entire Buddhist text from Nalanda University in India. It's the only language who has been able to do that. So that kind of rich language, now even in Tibet, the Chinese are trying to stop schools from having Tibetan class. So if you have such situation, if the political situation is not like we are faced with, definitely the connection will increase. Definitely. Like, for example, outside Srinagar, we have the Tibetan Muslim community. And efforts are made by exile government to teach Tibetan. Because traditionally, the Tibetan Muslim community of Lhasa spoke the best dialect of Lhasa. And they were our best musicians. So this is the situation. That's why we are only able to interact outside. For example, if a Tibetan, wishes to go to Balti to see the situation, Pakistan, due to being influenced by China, will say no. But it's a different case in Ladakh. Historically, monks from Mongolia, from Ladakh, they have to come to the universities in Tibet, stay there, get their doctorate after more than 20 years. Then they go back to become the spiritual teachers. So I'll give you one example. Even when we are refugees, during the Soviet Union time, the Tibetan government in exile gave scholarships to few monks from Mongolia. And today, as Buddhism revived in Mongolia, they are shouldering the responsibility of teaching the younger monks. So like Buddhism draws, Tibetan Buddhism, which is practiced in Mongolia, in 3 republics in the Russian Federation, Kalmyk, Buryat, Tuva, and then the entire Himalaya region. So definitely, when they, and of course, with His Holiness, united. And sometimes, I remember recent years, the whole people of the Himalayan region living in America together organize and receive a teaching from Himalaya. So there are opportunities, if there is possibility for connection.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Okay, now floor is to Mr. Abdullah Khan. And with the end of his comments, we will have a coffee break and we will resume our second session in next 10-15 minutes. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mola, for giving the opportunity. I want to clarify to all the participants that today's program was my program. It's the program of Paramartha National Front. And today's program was not political. It was on environmental issues. I told my friends UNGO This is today's program is not political. Tomorrow program will be political. But I am sorry to say that the Dr. Grossman, Germany, has narrated very nice briefing, but it was political, not expertise speech. And he protected well the Chinese occupation and the Pakistani stand. What the Pakistanis are trying to create differences in Gilgit Baltistan and Chitral. He also proposed the name of Gilgit Baltistan. I am son of soil, and my tribe, my nationality has not been settled in that area from anywhere. I am Aborigines, Burushu. As our guest said, that my language is indigenous language, and it's unique language. And the second, the Khwar language of that area is indigenous. Balti language is indigenous, and the Shanaz. There is no differences between us when the ruler of Maharaja was ruling the area. And you know, there is no differences, no cultural difference, no linguistic difference, no sectarian difference. These are differences have been created by Pakistani occupation regime. And secondly, the Chinese, you see, I am asking simple question from Dr. Grossman. He belongs to Germany. Claiming as a friend, I claim that I am a very best friend of that, and without his permission, if I try to build a small room on his land for his betterment, for his development, will he allow me? Without any permission, if he will not allow me even to enter in his land, in his area. The Chinese enter our area without our permission. Gilgit Baltistan is not a part of Pakistan, as I mentioned the United Nations resolution, not my own words. It's on the record. I have the United Nations resolutions, and you can access the United Nations resolution on your nation website, at Baltistan.org website, any website. Gilgit Baltistan is a disputed like Jammu and Kashmir, and here our friend, he did not express his expertise. And the question of development, everyone and every country, every nation wants development. But it should not be developed on our life, on the cost of our life. The Chinese have entered Gilgit Baltistan without asking a single person in Gilgit Baltistan. The Pakistanis have invited them to occupy the area whole, and even the Pakistan, in case Pakistan is going down, is disintegrate. This is the Pakistani policy. And secondly, these are the military or not. He mentioned about the American author. And before American author, I have mentioned, I have revealed this to the world, even when in 2009, in my conference, Mr. Singh was there in New Delhi, that Chinese forces have entered disguised as labor. More than 15,000 Chinese armies in our area as a civil cloth, well equipped. And secondly, now I am telling to all, though this was not political today, it was not debate today, but to clarify this one, the Chinese have established a huge camp in Tashkent near our border in Yogor region, in Xinjiang region, at the border of Hunza. The people, the person, the military, Chinese military, that more than 2,500 people are there. They are well equipped, and they said this is the labor camp. And even Chinese nationals are not allowed without permission to enter in that so-called labor camp. Would you imagine if it's labor camp, why the Chinese are not allowed to enter the labor camp in Tashkent? There's Chinese occupation design. In the future, near future, they want to enter speedily in that area to occupy the area and even Pakistan. In case Pakistan wants to, if it's disintegrate, India should not enter to Pakistan, and even America should not enter, should not occupy that area. So it's better, China is our friend, it's best friend to occupy our area. And Mr. Abdul Zahid, we want development, we want things, but not on the cost of our rights. First, our rights are freedom, not freedom of speech or movement and this freedom as independent nation, as independent country of Baltistan. The name of Baltistan is not important for us. Keep in mind, the name of Baltistan is not important, and Gilgit Baltistan doesn't cover all the areas because the Chitral is our part. If you don't have the records, visit our website and see the UK records, the official records on our website, secret records. Those are not my records. The part of the Chitral has been given to Chitral. It was the part of Yasin, my area. It has been given to Chitral in 1940 by British Empire at the time, and we don't accept it. And how Chitral became a part of Pakistan, it's illegally, no referendum, no plebiscite, nothing. But it's irony that India doesn't claim in the UN, and all the Kashmiri people also did not ask any question about that. That's why Pakistan is occupied it illegally, and we don't accept that. The people of Baltistan, we don't accept that. And the fighting, Shia-Sunni fighting in Gilgit, I am telling you to clarify, this is not the ideology of the people of Baltistan. We are not fighting. In 1988, what is mentioned? In 1988, Pakistan attacked Gilgit Baltistan, and especially the Shia community, not 500, in thousands. The people were killed, the crops even were destroyed, the buildings were destroyed, the animals were destroyed, even the married people who were senseless, who remained behind, they were alive bound by the Taliban. Now you call them the Taliban. You know? And even now, today, those who displaced in 1988, they cannot go to their villages in Bonji and other areas. You can remember that. And we have my relative, I am Ismaili, but my relatives, they live in Pakistan, in other areas of India, who are Sunnis. We don't have any enmity. They are our best relatives, and we respect them, they respect us. The differences have been created by Pakistan. Pakistan attacked us. That's why up till today, thousands and thousands of people were killed. But even a single person, a single murderer, a single culprit has not been punished, because that helps the Pakistani occupation, because divide and rule. That exists in our area. Because the time is short. Today's program was not political.
One question, please.
Yes.
My name is Sebastian. I'm living in Brussels. So
And answers if anyone has a question.